IVM.
There's a quick survey to fill out on ivmpodcast.com/survey. It lets us know a little bit more about who's listening to us. And you know what? We're going to do a few prizes. So, we'll do a random drawing of maybe 10 people and we'll send you all some swag. Remember, that's ivmpodcast.com/survey where you can fill out the survey.
Welcome to All Things Policy, a daily podcast supported by Pragati, a flagship media initiative of the Takshashila Institution. We're a bunch of policy nerds based in Bengaluru, and we like to bring a fresh perspective to Indian affairs and an Indian perspective to global affairs. So grab a cup of coffee, sit back, and join us for today's chat.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of All Things Policy. I'm Megha Pardhi. I'm currently working as a research analyst at the Takshashila Institution. Today we have with us Suyash Desai, who studies defense and foreign policies of China, and he's currently studying traditional Chinese language at National Sun Yat-sen University, Kaohsiung, Taiwan. In today's episode, we are discussing a naval branch of China's People's Liberation Army, that is PLAN. The naval branch of PLA completed 73 years in service recently. So as Suyash has highlighted, PLA Navy went to be seen as a chief force supposedly safeguarding overseas interests of China from being an assassin's mace. So discuss more on this topic, we have Suyash with us today. Welcome, Suyash.
Hi, Megha. Thank you so much for having me. It's good to be podcasting. It's good to be back podcasting after a very long time. I remember podcasting regularly at All Things Policy in Takshashila until I came to Taiwan. So it's good to be back home.
Yeah, and also you're today not as a host but as a guest. How does that feel?
It's good. It's a good feeling to be home. I'll put it in the simple words. It's good to be home.
Okay, so before we talk about PLAN, since you're in Taiwan, I would love to hear about your experiences so far.
There are a lot of experience. How can I tell you so many things? But I'll tell you something. Every China scholar who wishes to pursue Chinese foreign policy, strategic policy, something about the party going forward as his research should come to Taiwan. I know China would be an ideal place. One, because there is simplified. Two, because they offer a lot of scholarships. But if you are very serious about your work and if your research is considering history per se, Taiwan is the place because Taiwan gives you traditional script. Taiwan teaches you traditional script. There is no simplified script here. Due to this, once you learn the traditional script, it is easy to go to the simplified script. But if you learn the simplified script, I'm not sure if you can understand the traditional script. So it's a good feeling to be here and learning language. It's very rigorous. You have to study 9-10 hours every day. You have class 3 hours every day. And I am studying here for past 45-50 days. And I have learned more than what I have managed to do in past 4 years in India. So it's a rigorous process, but yes, if you invest in it, the results are enriching. I would like to say that.
So I think you also wrote an article on your experiences in while learning Mandarin. Can I just know like one or two incidences where you found it?
Correct. So there were a couple of funny instances. So while traveling, I because of traveling to a new country, I was completely excited. And in my broken Chinese, I asked the air hostess in the plane itself, could I get some noodles? I think I used the wrong Chinese, and she
Mhm.
interpreted it as could I get some cold noodles? And she offered me cold noodles, and I was shocked to eat that. But now, because for eating cold in India is not a very regular thing, we heat everything.
Mhm.
So, and I
Mhm.
was shocked. But now it's my staple food. I like eating cold noodles now. Also, but one thing that I'm not very acquainted with or comfortable with here is drinking lukewarm or a cold coffee or tea, because in India we are very acquainted with drinking hot coffee, but here
Mhm.
hot is just lukewarm. So even
Okay.
despite liking cold noodles, lukewarm coffee is something that is not yet in my system. My system is not yet familiar
Okay.
with it. There are multiple such experiences that I've experienced in Taiwan. I'm
Mhm.
sure I'll send you the link of that article. It's a good 2,000 words article that I've penned down in 2 weeks ago. I'm sure you'll enjoy reading it.
I will. Okay. So coming back to PLA Navy.
Mhm.
So, can you shed some light on early days of PLA Navy, like why it was constituted or how it was constituted?
Okay, coming back to the home turf from fun stuff to the more serious stuff.
Yeah, more serious stuff.
So I wrote this article on April 23rd. April 23rd is the PLA Navy's anniversary. This April 23rd, or that is April 23rd, 2022, the PLA Navy completed 73 years of its formation. It's a long journey. It was formed on April 23 at Baima, a town under the administration of the current Kaohsiung district in Jiangsu province in China. So it's a very interesting journey that the PLA undertook because today it's become the world's largest force numerically. I am not entering debate whether qualitatively the naval vessels are as equivalent or powerful or more powerful than the fleet that US operates. But at least quantitatively, it's the largest force that is operational in the world right now. But it was a long journey because initially the focus of the PLA Navy was more towards protecting inland waters. From 1985, when the former General Secretary Deng Xiaoping changed China's strategic outlook by declaring that there was no longer a conventional or nuclear threat with the Soviet Union, Chinese focus shifted or started shifting from coastal defense to offshore defense. So from 1949 to 1985, majority of its focus was towards, or its strategy or its guided strategy was coastal defense. So when you say the guided strategy of coastal defense, it also means that the vessels that it commissions or the posture that it adopts also caters or adheres to the doctrine of coastal defense. So they would naturally commission more defensive weapons. Their posture would be more defensive. Their positioning or their deployment would also be more defensive. From 1985, it slowly started changing, and then the PLA Navy, largely the PLA, but also the PLA Navy adopted or went from the coastal defense to offshore defense. Now, what is offshore defense? You also have to remember what was happening, what were the changing international structures. This one I've already mentioned. The driver for this is because of the reducing threat and coming end of the Cold War. But UNCLOS. I think 80s was when the third UNCLOS meeting was held, and after all of us know what happened after the third UNCLOS meeting, United Nations Convention on Law Seas, when the three perimeters were being marked or noted, where territorial waters is 112 nautical miles, followed by 200 nautical miles of exclusive economic zone, and then open seas. Thus, due to adoption of such international criteria earlier on and ratification of it under the third UN clause, China also started looking at protecting its offshore interest. Was it capable then of protecting overseas interest? No. But offshore, it started moving towards offshore interest. Like they started exploring its EEZ. And this is also the time where China started asserting itself in the near seas. So by 75, 80 is when sparklies and problems with the sparklies started. But they started asserting itself in 90s and early 200s. So the transition from coastal defense to offshore defense started happening in 80s. From 80s, this was under General Secretary Deng Xiaoping. Now under Hu Jintao, General Secretary Hu Jintao. Now we are jumping 15 years ahead. This changed from offshore defense to blue water defense. Now, what is blue water defense? And a lot of credit today for China's blue water defense or protecting its overseas interest goes to Xi Jinping. That's not the case. If and a lot of people say that 2008 is an important year in China becoming assertive, but the change started happening in 2004, maybe three itself. So, what is offshore blue water navy, blue water defense? It is when a navy moves its posture and for protecting its overseas interest. And with the move of posture, it also changes its deployment, it also changes its commissioning tactics, it also changes how it acquires weapon or how it deals with the other navies, competitors as well as friendly navies within those regions. So, three important words to be remembered: coastal defense until 1985, next 15 years, offshore defense, post 15 years under Hu Jintao, a move towards blue water defense. They achieved blue water defense in 2015 when the defense white paper categorically started saying that now we have to protect the overseas interest. There is an upcoming research that Manoj Keval Ramani and I, or your boss and my former boss, have worked, which is on PLA's modernization. We have empirically noted with evidence that after China moved to blue water defense and it started thinking about overseas, protecting maritime overseas interest, China has moved in that direction by the acquisitions, kind of acquisitions and commissioning it has done under Xi Jinping from 2012 until 2020. So they are walking the talk. That is what we have empirically proved in our paper. It would be out very soon, hopefully in the India Quarterly Journal. So that's one way of looking at it. This is understanding Chinese text. For this is looking at Chinese texts, especially science of military strategy and defense white paper, to derive coastal defense, offshore defense, and blue water defense, and protecting overseas interests. Another way of looking at it is something that I borrow from Dr. Rush Doshi and Professor Fravel, Professor M. Taylor Fravel. They have categorically argued that the trifecta of the end of Cold War, the fall of Soviet Union, the Tiananmen Square incident, first Gulf War, and followed by the 1996 Taiwan Strait crisis and the US's accidental bombing of the Chinese embassy in Belgrade in 1999. All these things together compelled the PLA Navy to adopt a certain kind of posture. So until now, I was talking about doctrine. Now I'm talking about posture within the given doctrine. So due to this, five reasons, three reasons in particular, and five other two reasons in general, the PLA adopted what in Chinese you called as Shash Hao Qian, which is the assassin's mace. Now, these are very difficult words to understand, but what it is simply, it basically means a posture of denying your adversary. Why denying is important? This is generally adopted by the PLA per se towards its journey to become a world class army, but particularly applicable for PLA Navy. Why denying posture? Because due to the activities of the United States, the PLA was worried that activities like the Taiwan Strait crisis or the Kosovo bombing, that PLA was on China was worried that such things could also happen with China, and China was not capable of defending itself at that period of time against the US. So, such a posture was adopted, or China started thinking about such posture in 1995, 1996, especially with the Navy, where they thought of blinding the US forces, that is, denying the seas to the US forces, or acquisition of weapons in such a way that they would deny the near seas to the US forces in case of an escalation, say, for example, Taiwan or South China Sea tomorrow. And now we are seeing that they have more or less acquired all the sea denial capabilities. The recent testimonies by successive Indo Pacific Command chiefs have also said that if there is a war between the United States and the People's Republic of China over the issue of Taiwan or South China Sea tomorrow, it's a very rarity that US will win and US will not come out of the war unhurt. So they have managed to build sea denial capabilities. And after building the sea denial capabilities or the blinding capabilities, now they are moving towards their target of being a world class navy. Part of it, the quantitative part of it, is already achieved in I think 2017 or 2018 when it overtook the United States to be the world's largest navy, and now they have leapfrogged 50 steps ahead. So let's see, it's going to be an interesting time to be a naval observer in the world.
Oh my God, that was such a long journey and so many things happening. I mean, I can imagine impact of a few things like bombing of embassy, but I could not have probably guessed that how much is all it also impacted their plans to modernize navy.
Mhm.
So yeah, that is quite interesting. So Suyash, is this PLA Navy is it also responsible for operations in South China Sea?
Yes, it is. It is. So for the it's a very difficult, it's a very tricky question because what kind of operations you're talking about? The Navy generally is responsible for offensive operation, defensive operation, and also HADR operations. But if you're talking about maritime coercion that happens or the China that which China has adopted, It's not with the Navy. It's with the maritime militia, Chinese maritime militia, and up to an extent, also Coast Guards in certain areas are responsible for such operations. But they are backed by the PLA Navy. So defensive offensive operations, if escalation happens, yes. Deployments on the island, three islands that are already been militarized this year, yes. HADR operations, yes. PLA Navy. Patrolling, yes. PLA Navy. But coercion, maritime militia, and up to an extent, Chinese Coast Guard. These forces are responsible. But these are not watertight compartments because they are since 2015 they are interoperable up to a certain extent, not completely, and also militia and coast guards have started training with the PLA Navy since 2012 or 15. I can't remember, but since she took over, so yeah, you can say that to a certain extent they are responsible for training the militia to do coercion in the South China Sea against countries like Vietnam, Philippines, Indonesia, Malaysia. Also, forget South China Sea. Also in Indian Ocean against Andaman, where in 2020 or 2019 December, a ship was found very near to the Indian Tri-Command base on the Andaman Island. The Indian Navy had to threaten and shoo that ship away from Indian waters. So yes, Navy is indirectly responsible.
Okay, so you mentioned that the PLA has become second only to US Navy, right? So did they do anything specific, or it was mostly like largely policy driven?
So
What kind of modernization they are looking at?
on the first question itself, I talked about doctrine. So they have developed the Navy based on the doctrine, what they have said. So, for example, initially their their ambition was to blind the US, to deny the seas to the United States, and their acquisition was related to mines, their acquisition was related to corvettes, their acquisition was related to small ships, frigates, their acquisition was related to surface to sea missiles, surface to air missiles, surface to surface missiles. All these things were focused in the initial half. So if you understand a bit of tactical aspects of it, also submarines played a very important role in early modernization of the PLA Navy. If you understand the tactical bit of it, such weapons cannot control sea. Such weapons are only used for denying seas. So this was the major acquisition that PLA took from 1990s to mid 2005, mid 2000 to 2006 maybe. From 2005 2006, PLA started thinking about breaking free because they were on the way of achieving sea denial capabilities. So, for example, in 2005, PLA started thinking about the first aircraft carrier. They started thinking about the hospital ship that it has deployed in the Indian Ocean in 2008. It was started thinking about landing paddocks. It started thinking about frigates. It started big frigates, destroyers. It started thinking about cruisers. So what tells us is the first 10 years were occupied by denial tools. Then from 2008 2009, they started commissioning slowly and steadily sea control tools. Now, as I've mentioned already, our research has pointed out that after completely commissioning denial tools, PLA moved towards bigger vessels which have longer legs. So, for example, now the PLA's focus is on cruisers. Now it is commissioning more and more destroyers. Now it is looking at amphibious vessels. Now it is looking at aircraft carriers. They have plan of maybe commissioning 5 or 6 aircraft carriers. Now it is thinking of commissioning nuclear powered submarines. Initially, they were thinking of initially they commissioned diesel electric submarines. So that's a journey that they undertook from denial to sea control, from denial to sea control, making based on the threat assessment and national security demands. One important thing to note here is that now that they have almost gained sea denial, they are looking for protecting overseas interest, and for that, a major requirement is mid-sea and mid-air refueling, which is not very easy to achieve. So now they are looking to also expand its mid-air and mid-sea refueling fleet so that they would not have to be docking again and again. Also, one sider along with this is that they are getting port accesses across various countries in the Indian Ocean region, in the South China Sea, and they are also, for example, the recent Solomon Island Treaty. The details are not out yet, but something there it could possibly go to become a next naval outpost. It also already has an outpost at Djibouti. If Pakistan could be the next naval, definitely could be a next naval outpost for the PLA Navy. So it shows its journey from the sea denial to sea control to a world class Navy. It's parallel to the modernization journey that the Navy has undertaken. Yeah, that's it. But
Yeah.
more importantly, now all these things that we have spoken is the past. But now, for someone like you, Megha, who's studying technology, advanced technology, PLA has moved towards sea control technology, but it is also acquiring denial technologies in advanced technologies. That is an issue that I think someone like you and people who are interested in technologies we consider should consider studying. For example, certain kind of drones, certain kinds of blinding lasers. All these are denial advanced technologies. So on one hand, it's a very interesting thing. Where on one hand, where they are using technologically advanced tools but denial tools. On the other hand, it is commissioning sea control tools because it has conventional denial tools with it. It's an interesting pedagogy that PLA is under right now, where different kinds of tools are being commissioned and thought about for different interests.
So I can say that from sea access to Nile to sea control, and then now emphasis on technology. So these are the trends in PLA Navy, right?
Correct, correct.
Okay. Well, next question. So Suresh, how does this affect balance of power in East Asia? Or does this affect balance of power in East
It does,
Asia?
Megha. It majorly affects the balance of power in East Asia because if you see numerically, so let's first talk about numerics and then talk about quality. Numerically, the PLA is already the world's largest navy. It has steep denial capabilities and it can deny someone. The only navy that can challenge PLA in the in its near seas is the United States, and so which and their successive commanders have categorically said that US need to commission certain types of vessel if it has to challenge the Chinese Navy. So it shows that the regional balance of power is changing. Perhaps it has already changed into China's favor, especially in the near seas. When I talk about near seas, I talk about Yellow Sea, South China Sea, and East China Sea. I am not yet talking about Western Pacific Ocean and the Indian Ocean, but these are two important regions that are to be taken into consideration for the near future. Because if you read the Chinese doctrinal text, the emphasis, like PLA strategy, there is also emphasis on which oceans PLA should be controlling in specific time. So their first and major priority is the three seas, inland water and the three seas, then the two oceans, and then the rest of the region. The two oceans mean South Western Pacific Ocean and Northern Indian Ocean region. One very important for the United States because there is Guam, there is Japan. The second island chain is passes through the is just before the Western Pacific Ocean. And when we talk about the Northern Indian Ocean, it is where India is right now. So these are the two important areas that we need to be very sure about it. And PLA is PLA is modernizing, considering these two areas for the future. And definitely the balance of power for the region has changed because no other navy in the region, forget the regional actors like United States, extra regional actors like United States. But can you tell me one navy who's capable of challenging the PLA in the region? No, they can do all the things. For example, 2015 they made artificial islands. They militarized some of the artificial islands. They are regularly doing coercions in the South China Sea with actors like Vietnam, Philippines, Indonesia, Malaysia, and no one is able to do anything about it. So definitely the regional balance of power has changed. Up to what and what are the tolerance levels, that is yet to be decided. But also it is important to study here the coercion framework that China has developed very well. So if you talk about balance of power has to be implemented, the power has to be implemented in a framework. So if China coerces its regional actors in the South China Sea in such a way that the escalation is controlled, there is a controlled escalation. It also tried to do that with India, but it didn't work out. So, but it has worked out in the on the Himalayas. So, this look at this phenomenon: controlled escalation. It is such a powerful balance right now that controlled escalation is possible in the regions that China selects. So definitely there is something to be worried about. And if this model is to be implemented in the Indian Ocean region, then we as in India is in for a tough time going ahead. So yes, it is something that all the countries are to be worried about in the near future.
Interesting. So, in short, I mean, to sum it up, China is modernizing their navy, they're expanding, they are implementing or trying to incorporate advanced technologies. And apart from extra regional actors, there's no other significant navy who can counter Chinese navy.
I'm not even sure about the extra regional actor that you're talking about, but let's believe that US is still in a position, at least
Mhm.
qualitatively, if not quantitatively, to challenge the Chinese coercion need.
Yeah, this was very interesting, Suyash. Thank you so much for this very enlightening, information, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Megha. Thank you so much for having me. It was a group discussion. Thank you.
If you liked our show, don't forget to check out other interesting podcasts on the IVM network. You can tune into them on the IVM Podcast app, ivmpodcast.com, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. You can also follow IVM on social media. The handle is @IVM Podcasts on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And hey, if you'd like to dive into Takshashila's research on technology, strategy, and economic affairs, check us out at our Twitter handle @TakshashilaINST or our website takshashila.org.in.
Hello. It's been another great week on the IVM Podcast Network. On Cyrus Says Cock and Bull, Cyrus is joined by Vineet, Puneet, and myself, Silvery, Urf Antariksh. We discussed the IPL taking action against Rishabh Pant and the Florida bride that was arrested for lacing her wedding food with marijuana. Yeah, that's wild. On Pesa Vesa, Anupam and Rahul Shah, co-head of research at Equity Master, talk about how to get started in the equity market. On All Things Policy, the Takshashila folks analyze the role of social movements in public policy. On Pulyabazi, Pranay and Saurabh look into electric vehicles and why their batteries seem to be failing. And on Say No to Drama, Chetna tells us how we can overcome saying no to everything. Do follow us on social media. We are IVM Podcasts on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And remember, if you're enjoying this show or any of our other shows for that matter, do tell a friend. It really helps us out a lot. Also, don't forget to rate us on any platforms you're listening on, and you can also check us out on YouTube. We are also doing a small listener survey to better understand how you respond to our shows and advertising on the network. We would really appreciate it if you could spare a few minutes to fill it. It helps us build better shows for you. And finally, we would like to thank our sponsors this week, SBI Life Insurance, India Water Portal, and Jupiter, a digital banking app.
Have you ever wondered where the business world is headed? How the ways in which we create, market, and sell to consumers will evolve? Or if we'll ever go back to wearing pants while working? For answers to all of this and more, tune into Advertising is Dead with me, Varun Dugirala. Every Tuesday, as I talk to entrepreneurs, leaders, and change makers from across business, media, marketing, and beyond. You can catch all episodes of Advertising is Dead on the IVM Podcast website, app, or wherever you get your podcast from.